Hi, Tyria. Happy Friday, and welcome to Warclaw Guild Chat. I'm your host, Ruby, and today we're going to be talking about the Warclaw with 4 of the developers that helped work on that. We're starting out with Ben and Ray. We're going to talk about part of the creation behind it. Let's jump right in. I'll have you guys introduce yourselves to the 3 people in Tyria who aren't familiar with you, and talk about your role in the development of the new mount.
Sure. Hi, I'm Raymond. I'm a gameplay programmer. I work primarily on World vs. World. You all know me from forums and the stream and everything. And for the Warclaw, I did a lot of the support code development for various parts of the mount system that weren't ready to play friendly with World vs. World.
I'm Ben. You guys know me from many of the same places you know Raymond, probably. I'm a game designer responsible for competitive game modes. For the mount, I took it over after the initial prototype and kind of just got it to completion, working on the skills and the movement and many other little things.
Awesome. So we're going to be taking questions at the end. If you guys have questions, drop them in chat, and we will get to as many of them as we can at the end, because we have 2 more of our developers coming on after these 2 guys. So we're going to make time for what we can. All right. So first of all, congratulations. I know this was a lot of work in the making, so it has to feel really good seeing it on live finally.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It was seeing it all, like the hordes of mounts going over hills. Like,
It was fun content to unlock ourselves too, because we didn't get any special treatment. In fact, we were silly. We've known about it for so long, and we didn't stockpile reward track potions or anything. Like, we were just we were into it. We were
yeah, I thought about it like a couple weeks ago. I'm like, I should start saving these, and I think I got like 8 saved up.
Oh wow, a whole 8.
Yeah, a whole 8.
No, well, so I don't know. Speaking as I'm like still huffing and puffing behind the Zerg, going, wait, I don't have my cat yet.
Yeah, Ben unlocked his cat. It was like an hour before the stream.
Yeah, an hour before. I was too busy working on hotfixes and stuff that I didn't have time to unlock it quite as fast. My main goal was making it before the Thursday stream, though, which I was successful at.
Yeah.
So.
All right, that's cool. I'm so close. I still need. You can probably guess what I still need. I still need the helmet and the body armor.
Yeah. Oh,
so
okay.
close,
yeah.
so close. But it's been super fun getting it.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I want to talk about is, how did you decide on this particular mount? Because of course, one question I saw was, why not a Doliak? It's so obvious. It's already there. We just sit on it, right?
Yeah, I mean, the initial pitch, like the Doliak, was actually one of the options. So we went through and did kind of pros and cons to a lot of the different things. Like Doliak, the Pro, it's known for being a World versus World thing. We already have a model. But once we started looking at the model and the rig, we found out that they're old, basically, and they didn't support. It would almost be like re-rigging a completely new thing to get it working.
The quality bar would have to probably come up quite a bit. I mean, it's a mount. Animation-wise, like, you need higher poly to get the fidelity of animations and things like that you need. And then your rig and just a full new animation set for the mount.
Yeah, something that we had talked about was that it's hard not to think of it as, okay, well, it's already there. You just take the player character and pop it on top of there. But a mount is a very different thing than this Doliak that's wandering through.
For sure. I mean, like, at the base level, the tech is plop the player on, but then it doesn't animate right when it runs, right? It doesn't jump, right? Like the Doliaks don't jump. They don't have a back pedal, right? Like, so they wouldn't be able to walk backwards,
And that's when the weirdness starts happening.
Yeah, it's all sorts of things like that make the consideration of one thing versus another, and why the decision was made. And, cats are awesome. So
cats are awesome.
Cats are already kind of a thing in World versus World, so that was kind of the next obvious choice. And we already had, like, with the Griffin, like, we had something that's kind of cat-like already.
So we had a good, like, kind of basis for starting.
Yeah.
Like something already worked in the way that in a similar way that we wanted to. So we got off the ground running with design and things like that, without having to wait for a model and animations and stuff.
Yeah, our early
from the
prototypes, we literally ripped the wings off a Griffin.
Ah!
Like it had holes in the side of it where the wings used to be.
Seriously?
Yeah, like we just talked to him playing like how long would it take to one of the character artists, and like how long would it take to just remove the rings, and they did it like in an hour. Or
Yeah,
something.
they're like it's done. It's done.
Yeah.
Go check.
But it was just literally holes in the side of this poor ex Griffin. So,
This sounds so much crueler than it is, and I
Yeah.
know it's fine, but I'm so sad thinking about that.
yeah, it doesn't have feelings. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's all right. It didn't really hurt. He was
Yeah.
fine with it.
Yeah.
I mean, but and that's where like a lot of the early development fun stuff, and I think we're going to talk about some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when you start with the Griffin, you can imagine all of the fun things the Griffin can do that would break World versus World.
Oh no.
I mean, like Griffin can effectively fly, like
Pretty close to
pretty
flying.
like as close to flying as you need to get over the walls in World versus World.
That's actually something that I was wanting to talk about. This is the first mount in World versus World, and a lot like when you introduced gliding in World versus World, there's a lot that you had to think about as, okay, this is going to break literally everything. Where do we start? I mean,
It started with Cal, our QA person, trying to get into every keep, and even then we knew that we were going to miss some things. Like we're still fixing
Yeah.
those issues as they come up. Like once you have thousands of people hitting on something compared to one person,
mean,
it changes a lot.
It
But
really started even earlier
Yeah.
than that when we said we need our own mount.
yeah, I
Because
guess
it
that's
needs
true.
to have
yeah.
all the special considerations that are necessary for World versus World. Like it can't jump too high, it can't
Yeah.
fly, it can't.
And we wanted
You
to be
know?
able to make changes without affecting a PVE mount, right?
Right.
'Cause,
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I mean,
which is all the way back to why we didn't take all the PvE mounts and just throw them in World
Right.
versus World. Go, it's fine.
yeah.
well, that and like we didn't want to take something from PVE like the bunny and then like remove its ability to jump up, right?
'Cause
Like,
that's
that's what
what
makes the bunny.
Yeah.
That's what makes
Yeah,
the bunny fun.
it's
We didn't want to make the Griffin just run on the ground all the time. Like those weren't pleasant options in our mind. Like
right.
we could have done those things, and maybe it would have been faster to do those things. But the better thing was to
Thank you for not.
create something special for the World versus World game mode and make it
Yeah.
fit into that game mode very well.
Yeah. So you've decided to make the World versus World mount, and it's just you just throw it at your QA guy and break everything
Yeah, I mean,
pretty much.
I mean, he did a lot of the testing for gliding as well. So he started from a place of like, okay, well, here's all the places that were a problem for gliding. Here's all the places that were a problem for this player skill or that player skill, and started in those places, and then tried to extrapolate from there. And like, I mean, that's a lengthy process, and we fixed quite a number of locations.
Yeah.
And like Ben said, like, I mean, our players are so like good about using the tools that we give them to play the game that like I'll get a message on the forums or somewhere. It's like, so if you dismount here, you'll land on this rock, and then you dash to this rock, and then you use this player skill to get over here. It's like, this is insane. You guys are crazy. It's awesome. Thank you for telling me.
Yeah.
We'll go ahead and fix this
That's-
now. So yeah, it was a difficult problem just from the beginning, and the community has actually been super supportive
Yeah.
about keeping us informed about.
Yeah,
the
they've been
things.
sending us like all night, been getting messages about different places they can break into. We're making constant adjustments as fast as we can, basically.
Yeah, it is one of the hazards of bringing something this new and different into a game mode like that. But when you've got that many players throwing themselves at it, that's how it's going to work. And
Yeah, I mean, any kind
this is a good situation.
any new
Yeah.
movement type skill in World versus World is always going to have this problem.
Yeah, like even when we change player movement skills, like those are things that
Yeah.
are. I mean, World versus World maps are big, and it's hard to test literally every like location to every other
Yeah.
location. So yeah, no, it's awesome that they've been super helpful and supportive about that.
Yeah, that goes into a little something that I want to talk about here in a little bit. But I want to sticking with development a little bit. What were some of your favorite parts of the development of the Warclaw?
I mean, I really liked when we were working with animation and
Yeah.
visual effects to solve some problems. Like one of the things that we had was like the evade dash, we had a lot of like just functional limitations that we were setting on it because we didn't want it to jump too high, we didn't want it to jump too far, right? Because those are things that exacerbate the problem of being able to get places we don't want you to necessarily. But we also wanted it to feel good. We wanted it to look good. It needed to feel like an evade and a dash without being, a really long distance that you're dashing, like the like with the Raptor. The Raptor's jump is very long and very far, and it feels really good. And so, working with animation to get good animations, good visuals for that. Working with visual effects to get that cool like smoky like ghost dash thing that it does. Like that was a ton of fun.
Yeah, like once we got an animator, we were able to like quickly eliminate or change some things that didn't feel as good. Like the original door pull changed dramatically once we got an animator looking at it. Because originally we actually threw a spear at the door and then let you run away from the door to do damage on it. And we used wind tech to kind of keep the person attached to the door. But it always looked a little weird because the wind tech is not designed to do what we were trying to do. Yeah. And then we got Scott, our animator, and he's like, well, we can do this, this, and this. I'm like, oh, yeah, that changes everything, and it looks better. And then it actually influenced the design of the skill quite a bit, where we went more towards moving towards, like, basically changing the Battle Cat into a siege weapon temporarily, as opposed to just, attaching a thing and then running around and making it look weird. And there was always a lot of comments about where the rope ended up coming, like all that stuff, all the weird stuff.
It clipped in
really weird ways, and ways that weren't shippable.
So yeah, like there was like, I mean, initially there were discussions on like what do we do to the rope to make it look better and not clip and things like that. Like, can we attach it to different points in the mount? Can we make it, maybe it's an energy thing and it like emanates from like further out and stuff like that. And like, so we explored a lot of options with that. And like the wind tech was cool. Like it felt interesting to kind of have to like be actively doing something to pull down the gate. It just, in the end, it didn't meet the visuals and like the overall gameplay feeling that we were going for. And I'm really happy where we ended up with the animation and the way the interactions go on the door pull now.
Yeah. With the evade, it seems like that feels like it had to have been a very fine line to walk, where there's a very narrow place where you need to land, where it's not breaking things, but it's not in the place of why do we even bother having this, because it feels pointless.
We experimented with a lot of different heights. Like it changed quite a lot. Like even up to getting close to the end, where changing the arc that you jump, changing the animation, it used to look more like just another leap, and then because it felt so much like a normal jump, we ended up changing it to be like, the mount has its head down and kind of dashing forward. For a while, it was actually just a quick speed boost, so it actually just ran on the ground really fast. Like we experimented with all different types of things for the evade before settling on the one we have, and then we're even still like we just made an adjustment to it last night to decrease the distance slightly, just for power reasons, and because also it was one of the big things that was helping people get into places they shouldn't. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of back and forth on that skill.
I mean, just to kind of build on that in a slightly off-topic way, like, I mean, that's something that we're looking at doing continuously, is finding the things that need to change for the mount to make it fit in World versus World. Reducing the evade was one of those things. Like, it was too powerful in fights and too good at jumping from place to place, even still. So that that's something we're looking to continue to do. And the evade actually touched a lot of people's hands. Like I messed with the evade for a while. Ben messed with the evade for a while. Joel, who does a lot of mount work, touched on the evade. Like
really,
we traded hands quite a few times to really get the feel to be really good, which was nice. We got to all kind of put our little touches on it.
Also, if it's Warclaw, it's on topic. I don't care.
Okay.
It's fine. You're fine. So, let's talk about the collection a little bit, because I feel like that worked out really well, and I'm a fairly casual World versus World player, but it felt really welcoming.
Yeah, the idea is we knew there was going to be a lot of new people coming into World versus World for this. So we wanted to make a collection kind of, I think I called it like a tour of World versus World, like showing a lot of the basic activities you need to do. We also didn't want the collection to be something very onerous. Like we didn't want it to take as long as even the roller beetle, because we didn't want to split the population for a long, we wanted to split them for as short as time as possible. Because obviously it makes a big difference on whether you can keep up with the Zerg. Like as you were talking about earlier, where you're since you haven't all locked it, you're kind of like trailing behind trying to keep up. So it's something that was definitely on our mind a lot.
Yeah. We consider like closer to like bunny unlock, you know, as opposed to like roller beetle unlock.
Mid-range. And here's the thing, though, I am back there behind the Zerg. I'm not by myself though.
Yeah,
like everybody, and it feels good because I haven't unlocked it, but I've made strong progress. And that's a good feeling. It doesn't feel I'm not back there feeling hopeless.
Yeah, I mean, so aside from just being fast, we just wanted to teach people about World versus World since we knew there was a lot of new players in there.
Yeah.
So going through the basic activities, we thought it was a good way to do that. Our original thing, like we toyed back and forth whether we should have a collection. At first, we were like, maybe we just unlock it through the masteries, but it felt a little too easy, I guess, or there wasn't enough around it. Right?
It didn't feel like unlocking a mount.
Yeah.
Right. Like it didn't feel the same as and like the same kind of accomplishment. And like like Ben said, like we sort of took advantage of the fact that people were going to want this mount to show off the game mode to those who don't normally get to play it. So I think, and we've already gotten lots of comments who are like, I didn't realize this is what World vs. World is. This is awesome. I'm sticking around now.
Or it just got them to overcome their fear of PvP, right? Like,
and so, super awesome. We're always happy to have more people in the game.
Well, and a huge shout out to the commanders who are leading some of these groups, because in the time I've been playing since the Warclaw came out, running around World versus World, I've seen a lot of really, really helpful commanders.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there were some really cool posts on the forums and on Reddit. Like, hey, you're gonna come into WoW on Tuesday. Here's some tips and tricks, and like that was super awesome.
I don't know if you guys have seen it. There's an awesome Warclaw guide from one of our players on the forums now.
Oh, nice.
Oh, awesome.
It is. I mean, it is a. If you don't play World versus World, or if you are just starting, or if you haven't played in a while, this is exactly how to unlock the Warclaw. This is step by step what you need to do, and I love our players for that. You guys are amazing. So, which actually leads me to that's one of my favorite things that I've seen since this thing came out. What are some of your favorite reactions? What have you guys seen that you've loved since the Warclaw came out? Please make it about the Warclaw.
Yeah.
Not like, hey, I had a really good dinner the other night.
Yeah, great chili dog.
Stop it.
None of us appreciate that chili dog besides you.
Do tell me about that later.
I mean, there's so much. Like launch day, there were just so many people playing the game mode, and like I jumped on a couple of worlds when I could, and just seeing the Zergs rolling around and I mean, it was so World versus World. There were the groups who were trying to unlock the Warclaw. There were the groups trying to stop the groups who were unlocking the Warclaw. Like it was brilliant. It was awesome. The fights were great. You really got a good sense of like how the game mode operates and the sense of those players as well. I was super pleased about some of the people who were a little skeptical about the mount at first when we first announced it, coming back to me and being like, I was wrong. This was pretty awesome.
I've seen that. And I get a healthy dose of skepticism when something this new and different is coming.
I mean, like it's a big change of the game mode. It was it was going to turn. It was like gliding all over again, right? Like a lot of people couldn't see how gliding could fit into World versus World, and there were bumps along the way with gliding, but I think the solution we came up there was good, and I think the mount is good for the game mode as well. So I'm excited about. I'm excited about it all. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, same thing. Like all the new faces, just seeing the sea of Warclaws like running over the hills is just really fun. Seeing like the community overall reaction. Like Ray said, there's a lot of people who have messaged me the same thing. Like I was skeptical, but actually I'm having a really good time. And there's a few things that we need to resolve, but overall it's not. It doesn't break the game like a lot of people thought it would. And like I said, there's always gonna be some issues we need to fix, but I think overall it's been a great addition.
Yeah, but it's our mount. It's World versus World mount. We can fix the things that need to be fixed.
Yep.
Right. We don't have to worry about how this affects like a PvE experience nearly as much as if like we were messing with the Raptor or something. So it's,
Yeah.
I mean, we're in a good space to make them out.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for
Super
the work
awesome.
you've put in since it launched to catch up on the things that you didn't anticipate and things that players surprised you with.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some things we thought might happen but wanted to see, and then we had to react pretty quick
You know,
after that. But
It's one of those things that like sometimes you can foresee a problem and be like, this is for sure going to be a problem, and then it ends up not being for other factors that you were considering, and so sometimes when like we don't think it's going to be like a game-breaking bug, we hold back and we're like, well, maybe we were wrong, maybe this isn't going to be as bad, and then sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong, and we make moves to correct.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, luckily we've gotten a lot of help from like the platform team and stuff to get hot fixes out pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we're going to continue to work on that as we go.
Shout out to Amy and Corey and
Yeah.
Kellen
Yes,
and
seriously.
Yeah.
all those folks.
They're amazing. All right. Well, do you guys want to answer some questions?
Yeah.
Sure.
All right.
Do you want us to read them? Do you want to read them?
Go ahead and you read them so
Okay. So
I don't give you the wrong order.
well, I was just going to go top to bottom
Okay.
because I'm a programmer. Tim Marshall, what was the funniest bug through testing and making the Warclaw that you really liked? I mean, there were a bunch. You could jump dodge.
Yeah, that
Which,
was going to be one
like,
of mine.
Oh, yeah, you told me about that.
Yeah.
Tripled the height of the jump.
Yeah, like the way it works is like the movement modifiers multiply on each other, so you
Goodbye.
get this. Yeah, it was like a cat-sized jump. It looked like it was really fun. I was like, I wish we could keep this in the game and not be horribly broken, but you could completely just sometimes even get close to just jumping over the wall with no. Like just, I mean, most of our players learn how to dodge jump pretty early. It's like an early skill to do, and so it was very easy. You could definitely jump through the little hole between the gate and the wall. And, it was pretty fun. One thing we had that was pretty entertaining is while we were in development, I removed the cost and the cooldown on the evade, and then when I was messing with it, I found that you could just hold the evade button down and like zoom super fast through the whole map. You could make it from one end to the other in probably less than a minute, easy. And that
Just
was
evade forever?
Yeah, it would just evade forever. It wasn't necessarily a bug because we were actively working on it at the time, but
We purposely disabled the cost so that we could not have to wait for energy to recharge while iterating.
But that combined with like I had removed some other. I think I'd removed. I can't remember what I removed. I removed
I think
something.
you were actually working on getting because we were considering like right now like when you hold down the dash button for Raptor, right? Like the longer you hold it, the further you go.
Right, we were considering.
So
doing
we were
stuff like
considering
that.
doing something like that where you'd spend each one of your dodges by just holding the thing down. It didn't feel good. We couldn't get the animations to look as good with that without a bunch of extra work. So we ended up not doing that. In general, it's not big, but there's a little bit of a window there where you're slightly more vulnerable.
Trying to think of other bugs.
I mean, early, like super early, kind of going back to ripping the wings off a Griffin. The wings aren't actually necessary for flight for the Griffin, so the early iterations of Warclaw could fly.
Yeah.
Without wings, and so it looked really silly.
Turns out they're not actually real creatures.
Yeah, no, not real creatures, just a bunch of triangles.
Physics do what we tell them to.
Yeah.
All right.
Should I read the next question?
Yeah,
Go
ahead.
for it.
See, Sarah Sunderland asks, are we concerned that the now necessity of having Warclaw will make a more difficult entry gate to new people in World versus World? And that's certainly something we actually discussed quite a bit. Like we talked about, should we have a mount rental? Should we not?
And, I mean, we're still considering.
We're still
a mount
considering
rental.
a mount rental because it's still a concern. As Sarah brings up, it's still something we're thinking about.
I mean, we're going to look at adoption numbers and things like that, and I mean, provide the tools that are necessary to make the game good.
I mean, it's really like most players, most of the average World versus World player definitely has Path to Fire, but So we're still talking about ways to like possible do mount rental.
I mean, just looking back to gliding as well, like it wasn't as big a problem with gliding as well. So we're hopeful that it won't be with this as well. And commanders are really good. I mean, I've seen more commanders running around on foot to help keep the Zerg together.
I've noticed that too.
So I mean, commanders are good about it. The mount's still going to have its place, on an individual level, even if commanders are still running around on foot because they're awesome.
Yeah. All right.
Ruby's going to read the next one.
Am I?
Yeah, so I don't have to pronounce that name.
Immortality X.
Oh, there we go. I was going to try and add the X in as part of the name.
Immortalitix.
There you go.
Why wasn't the Warclaw given 3 endurance bars to jump in PvE as well? Why, Ray? Why?
I can answer that, I
That's
guess. So the way masteries work in World versus World is they only work in World versus World.
Yeah.
So in order to get that to work, we'd have to do something similar to the way we did the movement speed increase. So the movement speed in PvE is the faster version of the movement speed. But we had to like flip that logic over, so where the default speed is fast and you get slowed down.
Yeah, you actually get a buff on you to slow you down if you don't have the mastery.
And so we'd have to do the same
Doesn't
thing with
sound
the
like a
endurance
buff to
bars.
me.
We'd have to do
I'm just saying.
the same
We'll
thing with the
everything
endurance.
is buffs, even if it does bad things.
You have a buff that insta-kills
Yeah.
you. Okay.
It's the same reason why when you unlock the Warclaw through the mastery system and you're not in World versus World, it doesn't actually unlock the collection until you step foot in World versus World, is because the collection is unlocked by the buff that gives you, and that actually doesn't get applied until you step foot into World versus World. So it's just kind of a weird technical thing about the WoW mastery system. We've done on purpose, like we didn't want it to have any effect in PvE, right? And so those buffs only get applied to you when you're in PvE. Or when you're in World versus World.
It's another part of dealing with that split between, hey, this is a World versus World mount, and it has to work slightly differently.
I mean, it's definitely something we'll look to in the future. I know we want to look at exposing some of the functionality into PvE. Just like a lot of the skills didn't make a ton of sense. Like there aren't a whole lot of gates to pull open in
sniffing enemies.
Sniffing
we
enemies.
could try to make it work for monsters.
I mean, we could, So I mean, there's considerations there. It's just how does it fit into PvE, and that was a question that I saw up there that I think Mark scrolled by. But yeah, like unlocking that stuff in PvE is something that we're gonna look at doing, and whether or not it makes sense in various things.
Yeah, I mean that kind of addresses Lilith Lovett's question about a separate mastery system for PvE. Like we could add that stuff to a separate mastery track for PvE.
We could.
The question was, would it be okay if you make the Warclaw viable in PvE, like add a separate mastery system for the Warclaw in PvE?
Yeah. So it's along those lines, and I mean we could do either, right? There could be a separate mastery system, or it could be.
It just gets really like a lot more difficult to maintain.
Into the WoW one.
Especially the more different they get from game mode, and trying to maintain them both it can be a little bit problematic.
Do other teams get involved at that point?
Maybe that's what we'd have to talk to other people about it, because we obviously want to make sure we don't break something in PvE as well.
Yeah, because
especially
you're touching other game modes, and
especially if we had to add content, right? Like that would have to go somewhere.
Yeah,
and so. Someone would at least have to be like, yeah, you can totally add that to my map. That's okay, right?
That seems like a surprise somebody doesn't want to find out the hard way.
No.
In their content.
I mean, we tend to be good about that, like considering everyone else's work and what they're doing before we jump on things. All right, I guess Exatry. Is there plans to enable using Sniff while tethered to the gate? I mean,
we hadn't talked about it.
We hadn't talked about it, but I mean,
maybe
for another 100 mastery points. No, I mean, like, it could be.
That wouldn't be hard to do.
I mean, we just have to add it to that skill bar. The cooldowns might be interesting.
We should save the next question for Alex in the next segment.
We're going to let Alex, the question is about the name for the Warclaw. I think he's actually going to talk about that.
Save that for Alex. All right, I'm giving us 3 more questions because it's getting late and we still have
show our concept art.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Can we show can you kick up the concept art? I want to see it too.
And we can't and we can't see that monitor right now, so Mark will have to let us know.
That wasn't it.
That's not it.
That's other concept art.
That's another concept art.
We have 2 pieces of concept art.
You don't have the other one?
Oh, okay.
We'll have to. We'll find a.
I'm gonna forward it to you. I'll go back to my desk and forward it and get it to you.
But we have that's the concept art from our first meeting.
Yeah.
So all right.
So there was one more question on it. That was why can the mount stealth? And you can't stealth and glide. You can stealth on the mount. I mean that was just kind of a holdover functionality from the way mounts work.
Yeah.
Mouse can stealth.
It's something we're actively talking about.
We're going to look into it.
We're talking about with the skills team as well. figure out, is this the right way to handle this, or should be handled differently, or should we disable it altogether?
Yeah, and
it's a conversation the systems team in general has been having.
That's one of those things that like we weren't real sure how it was going to work out, so we decided to
leave it
as it was and move on it.
Yeah.
All right, that's fair. All right, sweet. That one's saved for Alex. All right, I will tell you guys thank you and let you get back to work.
Thanks, Ruby.
Thanks a lot. Thanks,
right.
everyone.
Stick
Bye-bye.
around with us, and we will be right back with 2 more of our Warclaw developers. Thank you. All right, guys. All right, welcome back, and we have 2 more of our Warclaw developers. I'm calling it the Warclaw now.
Warclaw.
All right, I'll let you guys introduce yourselves and talk about what you did for the Warclaw.
I'm Alex Kain. I was the narrative point person on the Warclaw. Wrote a bunch of the lore and figured out how it was going to work in the overarching Guild Wars story.
Cool.
Joseph Clark, sound designer for the Warclaw. Did the gutturals, movements, skills, kind of designed the audio for the...
Okay. All right. Well, let's start with the narrative journey for the Warclaw. Explain yourself.
I probably have to do that, yeah.
In the best way possible.
So, Bobby Stein came up to me and said, hey, they're adding a new mount for World v. World. It's a big cat, and you need to do some work on that. And I was like, okay, well, big cats sound pretty cool. So, I had to figure out how they'd managed to materialize in the Guild Wars universe and why no one had actually seen them before. That usually is... that was the best place to start, and so we concocted this storyline about how these creatures were used in the mists. They were a magical construct similar to the sand jackals, and ancient kingdoms throughout the mists used them as cavalry. And we're not really explaining too much about that backstory or anything like that right now, but. They've been there. These pieces of their battle armor were strewn about the mists, and now people are finding them. And some enterprising scholar was able to piece them all together, and bam! There's this Warclaw ready for combat. And it was a fun little story to put together. I think there might be a book def in there somewhere, sort of explaining the beat by beat of that little story. But yeah, that was how it all started.
So we kind of did this before with the mounts that we've already had with, I think, the Festival of the Four Winds.
Yeah, that was me too. I retconned a lot of stuff. It's not really retconning. It's, these mounts were in Alona, and you weren't in Alona. You were in Tyria and Maguma. So when you go to the Festival of the Four Winds, there's this conversation that I wrote where, some Alonians are like, oh yeah, like, so you've got mounts, that's pretty cool. And all the Tyrians are like, yeah, like they would have been useful maybe when we were fighting Mordramoth and Zaitan.
You jerks.
Yeah, and like, why didn't you tell us that you had mounts? Like, oh, we thought you knew. Like, mounts are pretty great. Fortunately, this was a little bit, because the Warclaw is, it's a mists-focused creature. the lore had to focus on the mists, and that was a lot of fun because the mists are kind of our anything goes territory. So it was a lot of fun to put that together. And to explain how they came to be. It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. All right, so this scholar, he's just putting together these random pieces. And let's see what this does. This seems to fit together. Suddenly, huge cat.
Yeah, not expected by any stretch of the imagination.
And he's totally chill with it.
He's the cat. No, cameras. The scholar's not cool with. So like you've got a bunch of like nerdy priory scholars that are like putting this thing together like like a paleontologist putting bones together or something. When you put all the dinosaur bones together, the dinosaur doesn't just materialize, though. That would be awesome.
That would be awful.
But be awesome. But when they do put all the pieces of the armor together, the magic that binds the essence of these creatures reforms and becomes bound to the individual that pieced the armor together, which is how we're explaining that. Players that assemble their own armor sets of the Warclaw armor are able to then summon their own Warclaws. And the Warclaws are born and bred for combat since the ancient times when they were first made. And so you leading it into battle is like you doing it a favor. Like it really wants to get out there and knock some doors down. And you are just doing what it wants. You are just it's like with a normal cat, you just like you throw the ball. With this, you actually tear down some gates.
You're just making it happy.
Yeah, that's what makes all cats happy.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking about how mine just kind of watches the ball. All right, whatever. And then she goes back to sleep. She's not the brightest bulb in the box.
No.
Is the thing.
Well, new studies suggest that cats do understand what we want. They just don't care.
That also sounds right.
That sounds about right.
All right, so that fits. The narrative that you worked on did that have some say in the collection? I'm assuming yes.
Yeah, it was. I mean, all of these things are a collaborative effort between the designers working on it and the artists creating the actual look of the thing and narrative. So in this case, it was a meeting very early on, and we just asked, hey, how do you get the thing? How do you get the Warclaw? What is it? Do you go to a shop and do you buy it? Is it there? Do you find it wandering around out in the wilderness? Do you have to do something? Do you have to find pieces of meat to to get it?
Giant adoption agency.
Yeah, or a giant Warclaw adoption agency. So these are the questions that we have to ask. How do you get the thing? And they very clearly said, no, it's going to be a collection. You're going to find pieces of its armor. And so from there, the thing I have to think of is okay, so you can't get it until you get all the pieces of its armor. What does that mean? How does that make it appear? How does that tie into its overall lore? And so from there, I was able to concoct this story, basing it again on sort of the lore that we have for the sand jackals, which are, djinn-built constructs using magic. It's a similar kind of mechanism, but obviously not Jinn created. These things were made by some lost civilization, long lost to the mists, and that helped sort of, no pun intended, piece the whole story together. You finding all the pieces of armor, putting them together, and then that creating the Warclaw. And design was super supportive the whole time. It was a really great collaborative effort, and. Yeah, we think it turned out pretty well. People are also enjoying the Warclaw, so that's great.
Very cool. All right, so giant cat from the mists, armored up. What does that sound like?
Well, let's see. First, I watched some He-Man. I'm like, how did that?
Somebody had to say it.
Yeah. It's a large cat. I kind of went back into my. Early sound design days and kind of watching some of the greats like Jimmy McDonald. He was a sound designer for Disney forever. And I remember watching this thing where he used one of these glass chimneys to do a bear. Because it's kind of the shape of it kind of gives the boominess and the girth of the chest cavity kind of sound. And I started there so I can do my own little guttural here.
Yay!
Yeah.
You wouldn't mind holding that?
I don't mind at all. This is for
Excellent.
science.
Yes, right there. Yeah, that's fine. So this is the start of the Warclaw. Kind of using my hand and cupping it kind of helps with the formant of the mouth and stuff like that. And so started with this, and so that was me, and I needed to then kind of layer in some.
Am I still holding this? Is that
No, you're
okay,
good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Just uncomfortably
Just like holding it
whole
there
time.
for like 30 minutes.
Thank you.
What do I
Thank
do?
you. That was great.
That was awesome. Thank you.
Yes. So I started with the roars, and then I layered in some. Let's see. I used a garbage can, dragging a garbage can on the ground. Kind of helped with the purr kind of sound of a big cat. Mic'd the can and kind of dragged it and gave it a little bit of a. I think actually we have some.
Yeah, let's.
That's a great example also in the day in the life of a sound designer. I believe how that just came about was just we were moving a garbage can. Jerry Schrader, who was in the video performing, moved the can on one of our carpeting in the hallway. I was like, that sounds really cool. We have to do it. Let's do it. So we go, and it's great with sound design, with Foley and stuff like that. Anytime you hear something interesting, even if it's not necessarily we need it right away, it's very good to just get that in our library and put it in our back pocket. For example, I knew we had that. I'm like, okay, so I need some kind of purry, big boomy purr sound.
Yeah.
So I went back, got that, pulled that in. Also used another garbage can, 2 garbage cans. Spare no expense.
Recycling and normal garbage.
Exactly, yeah. Just kind of quick movement, kind of get some snarls, and there's that, and then there was a double bass, upright bass on its back, and we kind of did some slides and got this kind of Godzilla was recorded. That was the sound of Godzilla, anyway. All the facts.
No, I'm actually wondering, is that the double bass you've had in there for ages?
Yes.
Okay.
Jerry brought that in.
We've had that on Guild Chat before.
Yes, that exact one.
And double bass is famous.
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's kind of layering those on and figuring out the right position for those. I've also included that, I think, kind of like the before and after of the.
Let's go to the
design.
tapes.
Let's watch the tape.
Tape.
For the pictures with the sounds. Yeah.
Oh yeah, let's take a look.
Go to the tape.
Keep saying it until it works.
Is that gonna? Let's go to the tape.
Yep.
It's a picture, but yeah, still.
Oh.
That's the double bass. Oh.
It's all good. So yeah, there was me with the chimney, the bass, and the can, and the big dumpster can. So those are just the sounds individually that I pulled in, and without processing, without processing, we could play that quick unprocessed version.
And there's Bongo Cat.
Okay. All right.
So the kind of snarl
All right.
of the big dumpster can gives you that kind of throaty, that kind of
Yeah.
initial part of the guttural. So you kind of put that in front. You have my kind of thing going on, and then I layer in the double bass for that kind of boominess of I think of a lion or a tiger, kind of that kind of boomy chest sound, and then end with the purr. That was the design of the sound, and then from there I processed it. So, like you were saying with the lore being from the mists, I want kind of this otherworldly, ghost-like kind of
Ethereal quality.
exactly, yeah. So I did some reverse reverb, which kind of gives a little bit of a lead-in to the sound. So you kind of get the, So we can listen to the processed version. Cool. So, yeah.
So the thing I love is that it's not just, all right, let's just take a lion sound,
Right.
process it a little bit and slap it on there. It's, okay, this is a huge mystical battle cat from the mists. Let's build this from the ground up.
Right.
Which made something incredibly unique to this creature.
Mm-hmm.
So kudos, because that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I could go get a bear and put it in a bear. But
Please
like,
don't.
It's that
The Foley room's not that big.
you can't really work with animals like that. You're like, I need you to do this. Like you kind of get whatever they give you.
You
Yeah, that's
can,
the
but
only
only
Locked
once.
in.
Yeah, that's the,
Yeah.
that's the one issue with that solution.
No.
Yeah, nothing else. Yeah, it's very nice to kind of work from the ground up and just kind of design that sound. Like know what it sounds like, kind of knowing what materials and things I have or what things sound like to kind of recreate that sound.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's a fun job.
It is. You guys have such a cool job in there.
And we also did a little Foley session for the armor of the Warclaw.
Oh, yeah.
I got a video of that as well.
Oh, let's see.
Go to the tapes. That's cool.
Yeah, it's interesting too. Another kind of one of our traits is kind of just collecting things, and importing it in our room. You never know when we might need it. We've used the metal plates before, but they were kind of just. Eventually, we do clean out, but they were kind of just in there waiting. We're like, we need some nice kind of jostle armor movement sounds, and we just saw the plates. Like, let's take that and grab this and try this out.
Let's
It's
see
kind of
what
like an
happens.
immediate. Like our one of the sound designers in the video, Jason Wolfer, was just like, up these and these and try this and teeter it. I'm like, yes, let's do that. I think the final sound, which I don't think we have a video of, but basically that same idea, and we had some of these metal floodlights, and we kind of laid it on top as we were doing that motion. So we kind of got like the clank of the metal, and then a little bit of the jostle of the metal floodlights, and just so you kind of get that movement with the armor and stuff like that. So
It worked out really, really well. So, all
Thank
right.
you.
Well, do you guys want to answer some questions? Because I know we saved at least one for you.
Sure.
Okay.
What do we got?
We have, how did you come up with the name Warclaw?
That's a good question. It was okay. So
You can make something up if you want.
that's no, I don't have to. Here's the thing. It came to me and it was Battle Cat. That was the temp name that was temped in. It was like this is sort of the vibe that we're going for. I was like, well, we can't use that because we can't use that. I do what I normally do when I've got to name something that is going to, it's a big feature. It's a marketing thing. It needs to go through a lot of different departments. I can't just name it, something. I can't just pick a name out of thin air and just run with it. I have to vet it through a lot of people. So what I normally do is I go to the ArenaNet Narrative email alias, and I say, hey, this is what the thing looks like. This is what it does. This is the vibe that we're going for. It's a little like Cringer He-Man thing going on, a little Battle Cat going on. How do we put our stamp on it? How do we put our unique stamp on it? And we get a bunch of names that are thrown out. Sometimes the prefix is really good, like, oh, it's the war something, it's the war something, or it's the battle something. And then sometimes the suffix is really good. It's the claw something, it's the cat something, or the something cat, or the something claw. And ultimately, what I did was I looked at a bunch of different recommendations. I think it might have been Samantha Walschlager. I don't want to prescribe it, I'm pretty sure that she had like a couple of different ones, and she said like, how about the war? Someone might have suggested war cat, and someone might have suggested something else, or something claw. But it was definitely a bunch of people putting their heads together to come to this name, and it seemed, pretty straightforward after that. It was, it's the Warclaw. It doesn't actually describe the animal per se. It's not like the raptor, like we have in Guild Wars 2. It's more like the Springer. I can't remember the name, but anyway, it describes more its purpose. It describes what it does. It has claws, and you use it for war, and that worked out pretty well. So, yeah, that was the long answer. The short answer is a bunch of smart people threw a bunch of names together, and we figured something out.
And this is what fell out.
Yes,
that works.
Not fell out. Expertly plucked out from the collection of names.
All right, that works.
Yeah, that makes me feel like I did a little bit more. But yes,
you did lots.
Yeah,
and you did lots of good things.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
Is there concept art for the Warclaw? There is.
Yeah,
let's see the amazing concept art. Show it. I don't know if it's being shown. Okay.
Is it? Yeah.
Yes, this is our fantastic concept art for the Warclaw.
Yeah, look
and
at
it made me super happy.
Picture perfect.
I want it to be my wallpaper on my computer.
Can we do like a cell shaded skin that just looks like that? That would be like,
oh my
so
gosh,
perfect.
that would be hilarious.
Oh my gosh,
that'd be fantastic.
That. Yeah. Yeah. Or are there any other questions? Any narrative? No.
Okay.
Great. Well, I'd like to think that it's because we answered all the questions ourselves, and there are
it is.
Literally no more questions that people need to ask.
I think it is. Also because we're approaching 1 o'clock and we need to wrap up.
Yes.
Because we have things that we need to do. So, all right. Do you want to say, let's look at the tape one more time?
Let's go to the tape.
Let's go to the tape. Sorry.
What do we get?
Right.
Do we have any?
Very nice.
That's the Warclaw,
all
right?
And that's the Warclaw. Thank you guys for spending an hour with us. I appreciate it. Thank you both for hanging out.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah.
And I need to go finish earning my Warclaw. Have a great Friday. We'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.